conservation land trusts or land conservancies have been around for a long time. Sometimes they weren't known as that. I'll say off the bat, Peoria was really lucky back in the late 50s, early 60s to have Bill Rutherford's Forest Park Foundation serving as a land trust here in central Illinois. And if you ever wondered, why do we have so many parks, in the Tri-County area? It's because of that past land trust activity. The Forest Park Foundation would acquire land, but they didn't necessarily want to hold on to all of it. So they would then sell it to the park districts. The park districts would get a grant to purchase it, and then the foundation would take the money from that grant and go buy the next parcel. And so they did that for 20, 30 years. And so this park, Robinson Park, Singing Woods, all of these parks that we have in the Peoria Park District, a lot of them were acquired through that land trust activity. That was even before land trusts were cool, so we were real trendsetters here. I bring that up because the Forest Park Foundation really wound down operations from a land trust perspective back in the mid-1980s. And so we were kind of without that acquisition partner, for a long time in the Peoria area. But they did a lot to kind of set the stage for what we're doing today. It's kind of trying to pick up those pieces and move forward with them. So we'll talk a little bit about conservation. Figure out which button this stuff does it here.
Wait, what plant was that?
What? Oh.
What plant was that?
Go back. Oh, wait.
Please.
Repeat the question. Does anybody know it? What plant that is? It's from one of the Peoria Audubon sites. It's called Queen of the Prairie.
I whispered it.
Yeah, Queen of the Prairie at Brimfield Railroad Curve.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a beauty, but it doesn't bloom long, and the Japanese beetles devour it. So you have to be out there before they get to it. So there we go. So here, basically, a land trust tends to be in Illinois. They have to be a 501c3 organization. They actively work in conserving natural areas. They can acquire land outright. Some land trusts can do that, but they can also work with interested landowners who want to keep the land in the family, but don't necessarily want it to be developed by future generations of the family. And so they can put a conservation easement on the land, hold the land and protect its conservation values. Also, land trusts such as Peoria Wilds tend to be involved with the stewardship of the land. Once land is acquired and protected, it needs to be nurtured too. There are so many exotic invasive species that can be found in these natural areas these days. It just, if you do nothing, you're letting those exotic invasive species move in and kind of take over the property. So land trusts in Illinois come in different shapes and sizes. We have small land trusts that might serve just one piece of property. We have a little bit larger land trusts that might serve in a county. We have other land trusts that might serve a region, or some might serve the whole state. And land trusts, Peoria Wilds is a conservation land trust. We're interested in conserving and preserving quality natural areas or restored natural areas. Some land trusts will focus on agricultural land. Agricultural farm trusts are active in Illinois to preserve farmland so that it doesn't get developed and sold off. Some might focus on a historic aspect of a land, or a battlefield. There's a lot, you get into the Civil War battlefields, a lot of historic land trusts are involved with preserving and protecting them. So really, land trusts work in about 93% of counties throughout the United States. So land trusts, they're focused on lots of different things. They also come in lots of ways. Peoria Wilds, we're an all volunteer land trust. We don't have staff. We basically are a volunteer board, and but some do. Some of the larger land trusts around the Chicagoland area have full conservation staffs. They have 15 to 30 employees. Some of these larger land trusts do, and they will have an executive director and staff that do a lot of different things. We're not quite there in the Peoria region yet. So this in 2018 kind of shows some of the things, kind of what the make of land trusts were in our region. There was 40 statewide organizations preserving conservation land. And I go back to this, there's kind of there's a little hole in the donut in the service areas of a lot of these land trusts. And that's partly because, remember I talked about Forest Park Foundation, they were kind of serving that role for a long time and they kind of backed out of it. So it kind of left a little bit of a void. You see on here we have in Peoria County and Tazewell County, if you can follow the Prairie Land Conservancy Land Trust. In Tazewell County, they're focusing on some farmland conservation. Here in Peoria County, they kind of defaulted because there wasn't a land trust here, and Peoria Wilds said, hey, we need a land trust, can you help us out? We had actually helped acquire a parcel for the Chillicothe Park District, but it needed to be monitored by a land trust. And we weren't a land trust at the time, so Prairie Land Conservancy has kind of come in and helped. They also have the Elwood Preserve kind of in the west, just outside of West Peoria area, which is a neat preserve. But they're mostly focused down in the Macomb area and western end. And then there are statewide land trusts that cover the whole state. Ducks Unlimited, Illinois Audubon, Pheasants Forever, both like Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited. They're not necessarily in the land trust business, but they will help acquire property to protect it and preserve it. Illinois Audubon is a statewide organization that is holding property throughout the state of Illinois, even including some here. So today, we kind of, and I mentioned that in 2018, we were helping Chillicothe Park District acquire a parcel of land, needed a land trust. Prairie Land Conservancy said, yeah, we'll hold the easement on it so that we can get this deal done. The Peoria area, the Peoria Wilds group then decided, well, okay, we can say we need a land trust, we need to start following the rules of land trusts. And the Land Trust Alliance has a lot of guidance for land trusts, best practices of land trusts. So we kind of signed on with Land Trust Alliance, went through a whole process, and starting in 2020, we got this wonderful grant that was a capacity building grant for our organization through funding from the Clean Energy Community Foundation. We got that in February of 2020, just started putting together, okay, we got all of these public input meetings and everything. And then this little thing happened called COVID and kind of shut down the world for a year and really kind of set us back in some of our initial efforts, but persevered through and kind of got us to where we are today. So with that, the state of Illinois and what land trusts are active in this area or throughout the state. I mean, there's 253,000 acres plus in Illinois are protected through land trust activity. And so these land trusts in Illinois, these properties, most of them are open for public visitorship. So these land trust parcels in Illinois have had close to 90,000 visitors a year. Most of the land trusts, 82% of these land trust properties are open. If you've been to Merwin Preserve over in McLean County or some of the Parklands Preserve, those are open to the public. Some of the private properties might not be if there's a conservation easement on them, because again, those are private. Actually, all land trust properties are considered private property. It's just whether or not they're in the ownership of the land trust or ownership of a private citizen. So again, we branched out from our original organization. Peoria Wilds was formed in 1992 as a part of the Volunteer Stewardship Network that was initiated by the Nature Conservancy of Illinois Nation. In that time, in 2001, as the Nature Conservancy was kind of winding down some operations along with the Volunteer Stewardship Network, we became our own not-for-profit incorporation. And we, like I said, partnered with local park districts and other landowners to do conservation work on those natural areas. We also provided grant support for conservation efforts, whether it was acquisition grants, if it was stewardship grants, access grants. We tended to funnel a lot of those projects on some of the park district sites, like Tawny Oaks is a good example. The access for Singing Woods Nature Preserve, we were involved in the acquisition and development of some of that property. In 2019, we started expanding our role to look at becoming a lands trust. We received the capacity grant 2020. And recently, as part of our process, we finished a strategic conservation plan. And so now we're kind of at a point as an organization where the nuts and bolts of conservation work start to happen. So I'll give you an example of our that strategic conservation planning. We're operating in a 7-county region: Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, Putnam, Marshall, Stark, and yes, McLean, part of McLean County, southern part of McLean County. So our challenge was then to look at 7 counties. What are the priorities? What are we, what opportunities, conservation opportunities are there? We worked with the GIS contractor to identify all the Illinois natural area inventory sites within the 7-county region, what possible partners there are out there that can assist, what are the anchor points that we can build from. And so that was the idea behind our strategic conservation plan. So if we look at that, this will give you an idea. This is the 30,000-foot view. I'll drill down a little bit to show you what the next step in this process is. But in Peoria County, we identified some key areas that are great conservation opportunities. River bluffs to river shore connection, kind of up in this area. There's a whole, you've got kind of along the riverfront, you have Chillicothe Bottoms, which is a 250-acre parcel, originally purchased by Ducks Unlimited, and now it is owned by Illinois Audubon. Again, Ducks Unlimited helped acquire this property, and so it's a great riverfront area. It's on the north end of Chillicothe. You can access it through Moffett Park, but we also have from there all the way up to the bluff. You got some parklands up here, both Chillicothe Park District and Peoria Park District. And wouldn't it be cool if we could figure a way of getting all of the all of the different habitats from the top of the moraine, top of the bluff, all the way down to the river, to preserve examples of those habitats for northern Peoria County. So that's an area of operation. You also have along these bluffs of the Illinois River, basically, it's kind of hard to see here because all the parcels are different color, but it's kind of the largest contiguous tract of oak woodlands north of the Shawnee National Forest in the state of Illinois. And so you have all of these parcels along here. Can we help fill the gaps between those parcels? And we just last year helped acquire a parcel here on the, no, that's Forest Park. It's up here between Detweiler Park and Forest Park. It's a piece of property that helps create that land connection between those two parks. So that's an example of like drilling down, getting past the 30,000-foot view down on the ground to find those parcels that are possible connections and help acquire them. Illinois River, so we call that Illinois River Bluff border. You have the Kickapoo Creek watershed, kind of roughly in this area, and the green, and that all the way up here. Remember that first? There's a little strip right there. That's Brimfield Railroad Ferry. That's the top of the moraine that basically this Kickapoo Creek watershed flows into. You go this direction from there, and you're in the Spoon River watershed. But so this is kind of at the top of the watershed for the Kickapoo Creek. In there, you've got, of course, Jubilee College State Park. There's Summer Farm, Wildlife Prairie Park, and then down all the way to Kickapoo Creek kind of exits to the Illinois River down here. You have Peoria, the sanitary district properties down there. As birders, how many of you have been birding on the sanitary district property? It's got a big fence around it, so it's not like you can just go there. But every once in a while, we know somebody who has a key and they will let us in to do a bird count or something like that. It's some of the best birding habitat you're going to find in Peoria County is on those sewage lagoons, because birds don't know they're lagoons. It's water to them, you know. So hey, by the time it makes it to the sewage lagoon, it's probably not that bad of water. So they're happy. Up here in the northwestern part of the county, there's a parcel up. You can't really see it on the screen very easily. The Spoon River goes through that northwest part of the county. It's a fairly healthy stream in that section, so there's some preservation opportunities there. And finally, down here in the southern part of Peoria County, there's a Kingston Mine Levy District in that area. Actually, it butts right up against Banner Marsh. You know, it was not mined like Banner Marsh was, but there's some restoration potential there. As a matter of fact, the owner does do some conservation work there. Actually, he manages it so that it's a good place for him and his friends to hunt ducks in the winter and fall. So you'll see some, but that has some long-term potential to be a good kind of levee district, wetland type project. Let's move on to some other counties. Tazewell, Woodford, and McLean County, kind of bunched them all together. You see something here, this kind of light shaded green area. This is an area that is served by the Parklands Foundation, which is another land trust. And we work closely with the Parklands Foundation, you know, to make sure that we're not duplicating services within their service region. But also we'll get phone calls from somebody within their service region who might not have heard of the Parklands Foundation and say, hey, we want to talk about preserving some land. Find out where they are. Oh, you're in the Parklands region service area. And so we'll send them to Parklands. And then they get calls all the time from places that are outside their service region. So we're talking about, we kind of have county boundaries. Parklands follows, if they know what river this is, that's the Mackinac. And they're pretty specific right now. I mean, they're focused on the Mackinac watershed. So this is actually a watershed for the Mackinac River. But the Mackinac River actually goes all the way down here to the Illinois River. But they have not really wanted to work in Tazewell County. They're more interested in kind of focusing their efforts right now in McLean and Woodford County. So we try to fill some of those gaps. Some of the conservation areas or ideas that we've looked at there, again, looking at these Illinois River bluffs on this side of the river, what connections are possible. There are Fond du Lac Park District sites, there are Pekin Park District sites. And again, a lot of those sites were originally acquired by the Forest Park Foundation. You've got the south reach of the Mackinac River here. Along there, there's a couple of state fish and wildlife areas. You've got the Mackinac River State Fish and Wildlife Area here. Private landowner has just recently dedicated their property as nature preserve. So that is adjoining landowner to the Mackinac State Fish and Wildlife Area. So good anchor points like that are things that spur conservation mindset. Over here, Moraine View, State Fish and Wildlife Area. Has anybody been to Moraine View? I call it State Park, but it's a State Fish and Wildlife Area in the spring for the spring ephemerals. We're going to do a field trip, okay? It is one of the most amazing woodlands. You might have been to Punk's Grove and some places, you know, they're probably a little more well known. This woodland, and it's kind of the woodland below the dam. If you know anything about the State Fish and Wildlife Area, it's focused around Dawson Lake, which is an impounded lake. But the area below the dam is just amazing. It's not huge. It's not a huge area, but it shows you what these areas can be. And so it's worth a trip to go there in the spring, anytime from mid-March through May, or the beginning of May. Harbinger of spring is one of the first wildflowers that bloom, and Moraine View is just loaded with people. You don't even have to get on your hands and knees to look for it. It's everywhere there. So you don't have it in Peoria County. Keep looking for it. Never found it. But those state fish and wildlife areas provide good anchors. Illinois Wesleyan University has a small woodland down here. It's just a few acres, but we want to make sure that woodland stays kind of on the radar. And then also, you get down here, you have Sugar Creek and Kickapoo Creek watersheds in the southern part of McLean County. And so those are areas that we've identified as good potential sites for work. And okay, all my circles keep getting more and more of it. So Stark, Marshall, Putnam counties north of us here. So, you know, we talked about watersheds and moraines. Most of this, you know, this whole area up and down, you're at the meeting of two watersheds there. And so when you're at the top of a moraine, we don't often think about it, but that's where water doesn't flow very fast from that. It's kind of perched, what we call perched wetlands, were once historically very important part of these natural areas, or you know, the natural kind of makeup of the land. Most of those wetlands have been drained over the years. They tile fields, the wetlands drain, and they're farmed today. There's a farmer right in the middle of this who has a wonderful wetland restoration, Steve Zwicker's property, that some of us have been to. And it's an amazing wetland restoration. It shows you what these places can be. And so in our conservation plan, we said, you know, if we can find the right landowners, we can make more of these. And it doesn't necessarily have to be restricted there, but there's a good starting point at that point. Oak Bluff, Crow Creek West in the Illinois River Valley here. That is Oak Bluff Nature Preserve, which is a Peoria Audubon site. And again, this is another opportunity to connect uplands with riverfront. We'll dive into that in the next slide. Hopewell, another similar thing where you have the Hopewell Hill Prairies Nature Preserve and Fern Ridge Nature Preserve, Illinois Audubon owned. Peoria Audubon has 4 conservation, their outlots held in conservation in that Hopewell subdivision. Stark County remnants up here in blue circle. There's some remnant natural areas. Stark County is an interesting county. It's aptly named because it's got some of the best. I mean, you can see for miles up there at Stark County. And you know, you can stand, there's a little, if you want to see what Stark County is like, go on US 40, there's a little tiny rest stop. You know, it was probably built in the 1940s after, you know, it's a little 2-lane, a little Route 40 that takes you up north. Just a little tiny rest stop. But if you stand there in that rest stop, they got a little prairie restoration, you got the bridge, you know, it seems like every restaurant stop becomes a home for a abandoned bridge they've taken out of production. But you can literally stand there and see all the way down here to the Spoon River watershed. You can see all the way to the north. I mean, the sky views are amazing from there. It would have been a great place to be last night for the aurora, but the remnants that are in Stark County are give us the building blocks to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, you know. And so there's an important, you know, that's the prairie landscape that you can't make that up anywhere. You can't get those vistas anywhere else. Okay, but Crow Creek watershed and marshlands down here. You've got Sun Foundation, and you've got a lot of IDNR property up and down the river here. There's a lot that can be done in that Crow Creek region. Illinois River Bluffs up here in Putnam County, towards Miller Anderson Woods. You've got Illinois River Bluffs on this side of the river. Putnam County is separated by the Illinois River, so is Marshall County. It's kind of odd, you don't necessarily see that. The Illinois River runs right through those two counties. So you've got possibility of connecting areas here. You have some Illinois Natural Area Inventory sites that are still in private ownership here. So reaching out to those landowners, and finally also here you have Sandy Creek watershed. So dive in. So kind of what we've done with our strategic conservation plan. Now we're starting to drill down and say, okay, then, so this kind of tells you what the next steps are. When this is Oak Bluff Reserve, and these are all land parcels that go down to the Illinois River. All those land parcels have owners. You know, some of them use the property as seasonal, you know, hunting ground, recreational, and they love it. You know, some of those landowners like the conservation aspect of it. They don't foresee themselves, no, I'm not going to sell trees for timber production. I just like to, I'm going to hold this land so that I will always have a place I can go deer hunt, or I always have a place I can go duck. You know, a lot of people do that. And when those people get too old to do that, what's going to happen to the property? And that's where a land trust can assist. So kind of we're in the process now of looking at all these parcels, trying to find who are the most conservation-minded landowners in this region. Are they interested in talking about, you know, a conservation easement to protect the land, or, you know, looking at future conservation projects happening? So that's kind of what we're doing now, is looking at surrounding parcels within our kind of defined conservation interests and what we've identified in the strategic conservation plan, and how do we put conservation then on the ground from it. So that's what land trusts do, kind of in a nutshell. If you want to be a part of a positive interaction, and we have a couple people who were actually 3 or 4 people who were at the last work day we did this Saturday at Oak Bluff, or Saturday the 22nd. So it's not this Saturday. It's we'll have a work day there from 10 to noon. We're working on cutting back autumn olive and bush honeysuckle, amongst other things. bring some work gloves and your favorite saw, not say, or loppers. And we'll have some hand tools on site too, and we'll take a quick tour of Oak Bluff at the end of the workday as well. So that's coming up. If you want directions on how to find Oak Bluff, if you go to the Peoria Audubon website, there's a link to a Google map that shows you the location of Oak Bluff. If you get there, just drive along the road and look for the little garage and all the people standing around. That'll be us. Okay, just right up. Yeah, so that's kind of, I said, what we do in a bit of a nutshell. And we're partnering with Peoria Audubon on assisting with the natural areas. Peoria Audubon has 3 properties, 3 areas of properties. You have the Oak Bluff Preserve. There is also Renfield Railroad Prairie, interesting nature preserve, half-mile long and 100 feet wide. So it's old railroad right-of-way that has a lot of wonderful native plants on it. And then some of the parcels, there's 4 parcels in Hopewell that also are owned by Peoria Audubon. So we're partnering with them, make sure conservation work is being done on those sites, and they're protected and preserved in the long term. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have some Peoria Wilds board members here tonight. Our Vice President, Kristen Jakes Flex is here. And also, I think, and Trifles. She's on. Yeah, she's on. But probably a few others on too. So I'll be happy to answer any questions while Dennis pulls up the questions from the Zoom participants. Right?
Yeah, just a lot of your properties seem like they're focused on.
Here's a microphone to pass around.
There's a lot of your properties seem focused around waterways. I'm just curious about Dry Run Creek. I'm kind of familiar with it. You guys get involved at all?
Yeah, I think especially, Dry Run, you've got, there are several park district parcels along Dry Run Creek. You've got Schmager Park, kind of near the I-74 corridor. You got Bradley Park, that are along there. And I think especially if they're, unfortunately, such a urbanized creek, it's one of the ones that's most impacted by stormwater floods of a lot of the creeks. It's a challenge, but if we can find partners that are interested to do some conservation work there, I think it's definitely worth it, especially you get towards the upper reaches. Donovan Park is at the headwaters of Dry Run Creek.
So I explored and figured that out eventually.
Yeah. There was a plan for I-74 Lincoln to connect, to have a Dry Run Creek basically connection all through Peoria. And that, of course, I-74 just kind of blew that out in water. There's all kinds of great organizations, but we need to share more kind of, how can we help each other get things done, because, we all kind of try to invent the wheel at the same time sometimes. And I think, we need to have like a conservation summit so that we can figure out, hey, what can I help you do? Can you help me do this? You guys have a great website. How'd you do it? And kind of you need to cross-pollinate. Diversity is important.
Good idea.
All right. Well, thank you much, and appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.